I loved Dragon Age Inquisition. It's easily one of my favorite games, and what made it so special for me was the relationship building and the incredible characters you meet along the way. These characters weren't just background noise, they were fully fledged, interactive NPCs with unique personalities and perspectives. Interacting with them and even just watching them interact with each other was fascinating, and it was easy to feel the difference between their beliefs and personalities. It made for a whole experience that felt quite unique. So, delving deep into Dragon Age the Veilguard, I was massively disappointed because one of the most unique and defining aspects of the franchise, the building relationship with companions, felt completely destroyed. No other game had nailed this aspect as well as Dragon Age had, except for Baldur's Gate 3. I mean, that game took the relationship building to a whole new level. With its dynamic quests and the way it handled romance, it wasn't something that was just guaranteed, it felt earned, which made it so much more satisfying. So, given Dragon Age's history of leading the charge in this area of relationship building in video games, I expected the Veilguard to kind of raise the bar and be better than Baldur's Gate 3 that was released on 2023, or at least be as good as this game. And instead, what we got felt kind of outdated, boring, and honestly, somewhat lazy. Stress is making my hair fall off, and it's because 98% of you are not subscribed. So if you want me to recover my hair, subscribe! So I think one of the things that changed the most that also affects the relationship and immersion into character interactions was the animation style, because BioWare decided to go for a more cartoonish style this time, which isn't inherently bad. I don't dislike it at all, but it feels like these cartoony characters can't show emotions on their faces like at all. It's like everyone's been injected with Botox and their expressions are just frozen. And what feels even more frustrating is that the voice actors are clearly doing their best, but the mismatch between the delivery and the blank faces on screen is very awkward, and it completely pulls you out from the moment. But don't even get me started on the mouth movement. They barely sync with the dialogue. It's like watching a bad dub.
I feel there are mysteries past our comprehension.
Dragon Age was doing better animations and facial expressions a decade ago, which is why I think like, what, are we moving backwards? It's quite fascinating when a franchise that sets the standard for these kind of mechanics suddenly just fails epically at delivering something that is decent. And then there's the dialogue. I think good dialogue is the heart of an RPG such as this one. It's what makes the story come to life and draws you into the world. You should be able to feel tension, joy, sadness, and even anger through the conversations. But in the Veilguard, the dialogue is kind of bland, overly cheerful sometimes, and completely forgettable. It feels like a lot of modern media is afraid to tackle darker or more difficult themes, and everything has to be lightened or cutesy. And while there is nothing wrong with that in the correct context, it doesn't fit here every time they try to make it happen. This game's dialogue feels like it's trying to be a feel-good comedy, and that tone kind of clashes with the setting and the stakes of the story. I mean, one of the best things about Dragon Age Inquisition was the way the NPCs disagreed and clashed with one another. I can perfectly remember Varric and Cassandra. Their frenemy relationship was like pure gold. They were constantly butting heads, but it felt real because their values and perspectives were different. That kind of dynamic is completely missing in the Veilguard. Everyone just gets along, and there doesn't seem to be any differences in values or perspectives between companions, other than the fact that they all represent a different cringe persona, and it's boring. It's like the dialogue was written by an AI or ripped up from a bad romance movie.
Really? Oh, I mean, that's so nice. I like spending time with you too.
Also, there isn't much awareness about when things should be funny, or even a notion of what funny is. It just feels so cringe.
Hey, don't be a dick. That was for the little one. Stupid birds.
because even if the game has a dark or deep story, great writing can naturally incorporate funny dialogues between characters in cutscenes without making them feel forced.
Oh, sweet maker.
Cullen, how's it going?
Is the Inquisitor awake? I thought perhaps we... Oh,
This is actually, I'm so sorry.
But in this game, it's important to remember that you not only build friendships with your companions, you also have romantic options. And I mean, they ruined this for me. In the Veilguard, romance is basically handed to you on a silver platter. The game tells you exactly what to say to woo someone and bam, they're in a relationship. There's no challenge, no risk of rejection, no sense of actual building any connection. And in my opinion, Inquisition's relationships felt a bit more genuine. You couldn't get whoever you wanted. For example, I loved Cassandra, but she wasn't a romanceable option for me because I was a female human. And it wasn't disappointing, it made her feel more real because not everyone is going to fall in love with you, and that's okay. Now, in the Veilguard, you can romance anyone you want regardless of gender or race. And while this inclusivity is great, it shouldn't come to the expense of realism, because people have preferences, and that's fine. It's what makes relationships feel personal. And even if the game allows for universal romance options, the connections should feel real. In the Veilguard, your character seems to adapt to the person they're romancing. I mean, their personality transforms to match the cringiness of their partner, which makes your character like any distinct personality of their own. This bothers me because it undermines the relationship building mechanics, making it feel so fake that it's not even interesting. And it kind of takes away from the emotional weight of the relationship and the immersion you get from the game, especially in the cutscenes, because this game is full of cutscenes, and all the romantic cutscenes kind of seem cringe as hell, and I don't even want to watch them.
What? Like I want you to throw me over one of those fancy graves with skulls and...
But it's not just to call out the Veilguard on this, because I've noticed that this is not just a problem in this specific game. It's a trend I've noticed in a lot of games and media lately. Everything is so sanitized, like developers are just afraid to let players experience difficult situations or deal with characters who have strong conflicting personalities. Relationships aren't supposed to be easy. They take effort and understanding, and they're messy and complicated, and that's what makes them interesting. And when you take away that complexity, you kind of lose the purpose. And I think that's what happened here. I expected so much more from this game because Dragon Age has always been a pioneer in the relationship building mechanic on video games, but instead I got a watered down, outdated version of what made the franchise so special in the first place. But to be clear, I'm not saying the Veilguard is a bad game overall. The story seems to be going pretty well, and the world looks so beautiful. But this key mechanic, the thing that made Dragon Age stand out, has been completely gutted. It's disappointing, especially for fans like me who fell in love with the series because of these amazing characters and relationships. So if you're new to Dragon Age and you haven't played other games, you're probably going to enjoy the game a lot. But I think for people who have played the previous games, it's gonna be quite disappointing because we already have a certain standard to which we hold this franchise and expect certain things.